we're all givers, right? We are caretakers. And I think especially when you become a mom, you have like literally lives in your hands. And that's a lot of responsibility. And because you don't need to necessarily make time for yourself, then it doesn't become something that gets done. It feels selfish, right? It feels like, well, I'm not giving.
Welcome to the Marriage Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's been through and still going through the trenches of motherhood myself, I get it. Life gets busy and sometimes your relationship takes a backseat. But guess what? You can feel like a couple while raising kids, and I'm here to help. Join me each week here as we dive into the messy but fulfilling world of marriage and motherhood. From navigating conflict to reigniting that spark, we're going to chat about it all. So, if you're juggling mom life with wife life, this podcast is for you. And hey, if you love what you hear, I'd be so grateful if you could rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Here's this week's episode. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I am so thrilled to have Tara here because we're going to be talking about something so fun. And when I mean so fun, we're actually going to be talking about fun. Now, I can't tell you how many of my clients have told me they don't remember how to have fun. They don't feel like that side of them exists anymore. It kind of just died when they became mothers. And that makes me so sad. But also, that was me. And so I completely understand how that can happen. And that doesn't mean it's okay, right? Just because it is quote unquote common or normalized doesn't mean that it's right. And we ourselves get to be the version of ourselves that we want to be. And fun is such a critical aspect of that, right? Like, who doesn't want to hang out with someone fun? And so Tara here is a leadership and certified life coach specializing in working moms who feel they're failing at managing both high-achieving work and being the mom they want to be. She helps them reclaim their life and eliminate overwhelm by taking control of their time, priorities, and mind so they can find fulfillment in all areas of their life guilt-free. Thank you so much for being here, Tara.
Oh, thank you for having me, Michelle. I'm really excited about this conversation.
Definitely. I cannot wait to see where this conversation goes because what you can't see is like I have these notes about what we're going to talk about and like I just can't wait for you all to hear. But anyway, before we get started, let's learn more about you. Can you share with us where you live and how old your kids are?
Sure. Yes. I live in Michigan, so about an hour outside of Detroit. I've lived here my whole life. My kids are now 7 and 5. So I have a 7-year-old daughter who loves football. I actually have a sore jaw right now because we were playing in the basement and she's pretty strong. And I also have a 5-year-old son and he is an amazing builder. And my husband, Eric, we've been married 12 years. So that's our little family.
I love it. Do you ever find Legos on the floor and step on them and like scream because it's so painful?
You know, he's actually into magnet blocks right now.
Oh,
So I
you are
find
lucky.
a lot of magnet blocks in random places, but I understand the feeling.
My two oldest are boys, so I have like a million Legos. I'm not even joking. And my middle child is super into building all kinds of creative things, but that means that there's a lot of work in progress laying around and also random Legos all over the floor like it's been sprinkled around like it's confetti. So it hurts.
Decoration.
Right? So what inspired you to become a leadership and certified life coach? Can you tell us about your story?
Yeah, I kind of just fell into it. And basically, after the birth of my second child, I was returning from maternity leave and I felt like I could not fit all the pieces of my life back together again the way that it was before. I mean, I had a full-time job, I had a long commute. I knew that I wanted to continue to work. So that wasn't like a decision point for me, but I couldn't figure out how to do it all, right? I couldn't figure out how to maintain that job and be the mom that I wanted to be, still be present with my kids and just feel good about everything I was doing. And my tagline comes because that's the way I was feeling. I was feeling like I was failing at all parts of my life, frankly. And so I ended up hiring my own personal life coach when I didn't even know what a life coach was. Like coincidentally, Facebook somehow knew what I was going through and sent me an ad of all things, right? And I clicked on it. I talked to this woman, Dixie, and she was amazing. I enrolled in her program and it transformed my life so much that I felt this is something more women need to know about. They need the support and they need these skills and these tactics and these mindset shifts. So that's when I'm like, I can do this. Like I have been a coach, like in my other professional life for 20 years, a teacher and a coach in healthcare improvement. And I'm like, this is just coaching, but in with a different topic and one that I'm so passionate about. So that's really how it kind of came about. I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So, went through the training and here we are.
I love it so much. I love how you and I have that in common where we went through a lot of struggles. I mean, it's no small feat to figure out how to navigate working life while being a mom, while being a wife. It's still a lot of responsibility just being an adult.
Yeah.
And it's put on women so much that we need to do it all. But it's coming from a place where the past generations, maybe like one generation ago or even two, they didn't go to work. The domestic life was their work. And now we're expected to do it all. While, I mean, there are some men who, kudos if you're a man and you're listening to this, or if your husband is like this, who are evolving with the times and being an equal partner. But like, we literally cannot do it all. And I don't feel like that should be a goal. Like, we should not strive for that because that's a surefire way to end up burned out.
Yeah, Michelle, I mean, one of my mottos is that I believe we can have it all, but we can't do it all.
Yes.
So we can have, and I believe this, right? Because I feel like I've been able to demonstrate it, but I believe that I can have the passionate career and feel like I'm doing that well and be the mother that I want to be, right? And the present and caring wife and the daughter and the family member and the friend. And like, I can actually have all that. But just as you said, it requires me to release those expectations of myself that I have to do everything, right? And for me, it's kind of about level loading. That's like a continuous improvement, a lean term. I'm an engineer by background. And so I'm really into process. And for me, it's really about making sure that my weeks are very balanced. And it takes purposeful planning. But when I'm able to do that and have all of those things that I'm trying to have in my life as the goals, I can make that happen for the most part. But I can't do every little thing that I maybe had tried to do or was trying to do or thought I needed to do.
Yeah, that makes me think of that visualization where you've got rubber balls and you've got glass balls. Are you familiar with that? Is that something that you bring up a lot with your clients?
No, I haven't heard of this one.
So the idea is, like when we talk about motherhood, we talk about juggling, right? That's often the analogy we use when it comes to navigating all the things, right? And when we are working moms, wives, daughters, friends, employee, whatever, right? Naturally, we have a lot of things that we're juggling. And when it comes to the rubber ball and the glass ball, like, can you drop a rubber ball and have it still be okay? The answer is yes. So which of the things that you think you need to do, and I intentionally say that you think you need to do, right?
Yes.
That can be okay if you let it drop. It doesn't mean you can't pick it up later, but then there are also those glass balls where it's like, if you drop it, like, it's game over. You cannot fix it. Okay, obviously, your kids need to eat. Do you need to be the person that makes a meal every day? Do you need to be the person that makes it from scratch? So there are so many choices within what we can do that can help us not choose burnout, right? Because I actually believe burnout is a choice. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think burnout happens when I don't want to say you're not paying attention, right? But you're continuing the doing cycle, right? And you just don't have the strategies or maybe even the self-awareness as to what exactly is happening. And also, you don't have the knowledge that you can change it, right? You don't have the knowledge or belief that you can change things, right? And there's so many things we can't control. I love the circle of control kind of theory where you can't control everything, but there is so much you actually can control. So I try to think about what are those things and how can I make changes so that I don't just fall into that burnout phase without realizing it. And I love your glass ball and your rubber ball analogy because I think a lot of women feel like fun and time for themselves is a rubber ball.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Goes on the back burner as well as their marriage.
Yes. Yes. And I think what we don't often realize is that's actually a glass ball. And it really is important to make sure that those things are getting the attention that they need.
So let's dive into that. Why do you think that women view fun and any form of self care, anything that has nothing to do with their kids, a rubber ball?
Yeah, I think because we're all givers, right? And we are caretakers. And I think, especially when you become a mom, you have like literally lives in your hands. And that's a lot of responsibility. You're doing all of those things. And I think that because you don't need to necessarily make time for yourself, then it doesn't become something that gets done. It feels selfish, right? It feels like, well, I'm not giving. And I really had to change my mindset around that because there was a lot of guilt when I started taking time out for myself because I felt then I was putting burden on other people to take care of the kids or do other things while I was out doing something for myself. But what I realized was that when I was able to start doing that consistently, even in small chunks of time, it actually allowed me to then be a better mother, a better wife, just happier, bring a happier dimension to my family than before. So in reality, it wasn't just for myself. When I think about all the benefits that it had in my work, to be honest, I got way more productive. I produced better work, more creative work. I interacted with people better, more collaboratively, right? So I think what I just had to realize and convince myself was that it wasn't selfish and I was still actually giving to all of those things that I cared about. And it was allowing me to show up as a better version of myself in all of those different areas.
Yeah. And what's funny about guilt is that guilt is just as valid as any other feeling that we feel, but it's a meaning that we give to it and what we choose to do with it. So guilt could just be a signal for you to reflect, like, why do I feel guilty about this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also, is there anything else that you might feel guilty of? I know when I don't have fun, when I don't take care of myself, I am a bitch to everyone in my
Mm-hmm.
family. I'm way
Mm-hmm.
more snappy. I am irritable. I have a very low threshold for
Mm-hmm.
nonsense. And so when the kids aren't listening, I blow up way faster and I take everything my husband says personally, even like a certain way he might look at me. I might attach a lot of meaning to it when he really didn't intend anything
Mm-hmm.
and it was completely innocent. And so for me, it really took me to see that's what I should feel guilty over, not me taking care of
Mm-hmm.
myself. I should feel guilty
Mm-hmm.
for allowing myself to continue showing up that way and not doing anything about it. Now,
Yeah.
I am human, we're all human, and we can get that way. But once you realize that you've stepped into that pattern, what are you doing about it then?
Yes.
Right?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I realized really came about when I was mountain biking, right? And this is just one of the things that I've always done, primarily before kids, right? Even before I met my husband. And I hadn't been able to do it in a long time. And I finally got out on my mountain bike and I was riding in a trail. And I remember thinking, this is amazing. Like, I came back. My husband was like, whoa, like, what did you do today? I went mountain biking and I felt like myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I hadn't felt in so long after kids. So I think that was kind of my wake up moment to say, no, I need to make sure that I get something in my week, and I try to plan for one small thing a week, right? It's part of my weekly planning where I ask myself this question, right? Like right here on my plan, like where have I planned something fun or for me? Just to make sure that it actually gets in the schedule.
I love that. And that's what it looks like to prioritize yourself, because oftentimes we look at our schedule and we're kind of like, well, I can't fit in anything.
Mm-hmm.
But if you make it a priority, as important as it is to, I don't know, connect with your kids or to cook dinner, then everything else can work around that, right? Because you having fun, you doing something for yourself, like we said, is a glass ball.
Mm-hmm.
So before we got on and started recording this, you mentioned something about fake fun. So can we dive into what
Yeah.
it means to have true fun versus fake fun? Because I think this is like, I actually don't know what she's going to say, by the way, but I do feel like it's going to be relevant to all moms out there,
Mhm.
because I know when I first had kids, I thought fun was hanging out with them. But I'm not that kind of mom that like wants to stay at home all day with them. So I really was not having much fun at all. Like
Mhm.
I just slept, I woke up, I would eat outside of my normal time because I would forget to eat. I would play with my kids and then do it all over again the next day.
Mhm.
So I felt
Mhm.
like I was an empty shell of myself.
Yeah.
And I'm very curious what you mean by fake fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a definition from Catherine Price, and she has a whole 300-page book on fun, the power of fun. I'd actually just recommend her 10-minute TED Talk, which summarizes the whole darn thing. But she talks about how, first of all, fun is a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Fun is an emotional state. It's actually not an experience. So what usually happens is that we're like, oh, well, that was fun. And mountain biking was fun, or playing that game was fun, or this party was fun, right? We usually think of fun as something that happens, right? But it's actually not that. It's the feeling that's produced inside of us. What she says, three elements all come together. And they have to come together in order for fun to exist. True fun. True fun actually makes you feel alive. So, true fun is something that leaves you more energized at the end versus drained, right? True fun makes us smile and laugh and feel connected with others. So, those three elements that she talks about are playfulness, connection, and flow. And she's like, you need all three of these to happen like simultaneously to be having true fun. And, playfulness, when you think about playfulness, you think about feeling lighthearted, right? Not really caring about what you look like, if you're being silly, not really caring about the outcome. And then connection is really sharing an experience with someone else or a group of people. And sometimes it could be sharing an experience with a thing, right? Like nature. And then flow is when you're really doing something you kind of don't notice the time going by, right? It's being engrossed in something without distraction. And she makes a really big point about this distraction, right? And this thing that we have in our hands all day long is a big culprit in distraction, right? All the pings and all the vibrations, and it really can interfere with flow. So, when you think about, even if it, and I know even a lot of my clients, they have a hard time thinking about the last time they had fun, right? But if you were to think about some of the times that you just had so much fun, you'd probably realize that these three elements were all there, right? You were being playful, you were connecting with someone or something, and you were in flow. You just didn't even notice the time going by. And that's really true fun. It leaves you just feeling good and alive. And she contrasts that with fake fun. So things that, to be honest, I'm guilty of it as well. A lot of us mothers do for fun, right? Oh, yeah, I'm just going to binge like on Netflix for a little while, eat some popcorn, I'll scroll social media a little while. But when you think about how you feel at the end of that experience, how does that make you feel? Does it make you feel more energized? Or is it kind of deflating and you're like, okay, I just spent an hour looking at someone else's lives? on social media. And now I feel kind of depressed because my life in comparison kind of stinks. So that is what she means by the difference of true fun and fake fun. And we really need to be purposeful about including that true fun in our lives.
I love that. And if you're like, wait, but I love Netflix, we're not saying don't watch Netflix. If that's your
Yeah.
thing, go watch it. But if it's not actually giving you energy, so I love to actually talk about energy like things that give you life and things that
Mhm.
drain you,
Mhm.
aka energy vampires, right? And being mindful of how much time you're giving to those energy vampires.
Mhm.
And Netflix is a great way to wind down.
Mhm.
We're not debating that. However, if you are watching it and that is your only source of quote
Yes.
unquote fun, you gotta reach for something else, girlfriend.
Yes. Agree. Agree.
And it doesn't have to take a lot of time either. So I love that you highlighted that it's just a
Mhm.
feeling, right? So,
Mhm.
like, you could paint. If you're like a creative person, you could be connecting with yourself or your creativity. It doesn't always have to involve someone else. I actually
Mhm.
love go-kart racing. I mean, I'm not like competitive about it or anything, but like I guess I am when I'm racing on the track, but like I'm not doing it like on a regular and I'm like going to compete. But like the
Yeah.
Aries in me is like, oh, I gotta get first, right?
Yeah, me too. Very competitive.
But that could be fun, right? Or
Mhm.
even collecting leaves and deciding to be like your kid's self and put paper on top of the leaf and color with crayon over it to get an impression. Like that could be fun for you, right? Like
Yeah.
whatever fun feels like for you, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if it fits anyone else's definition of fun. And so
Right.
this is where understanding yourself, self mastery comes
Mhm.
into play. It
Mhm.
gets to be an explorative process. So, what do you have to share with the women who's like, but I don't have time for fun? I don't know what I even find fun anymore.
Mhm.
Like, I've had
Yeah.
plenty of clients who have said this, by the way, and it's really sad, but understandable.
Yes, I hear that a lot as well. And even I continue to have to dig at my fun elements so that I can continue to plan fun and execute fun, right? And have different types of fun. Sometimes the fun looks a little different, right? After you've had kids than before. And by the way, I will give some advice on this, but if anyone is looking for more guidance or more structure, I do have a guide right now out on this called The Joyful Balance. And it's a guide for working moms to reclaim fun and time for themselves without the guilt. So it'll allow you to journal and to be more self aware of some of these things I'm about to talk to you about. But the first is really making that mindset switch that fun is essential versus the nice to have. And often we can say, yeah, I know I should be doing this and that and that whole other thing, right? But until your brain makes that connection, it's always going to be a should instead of a have to. So one of the ways that I help clients internalize that this is essential versus a nice to have is by having them write down all the ways it will benefit their life. So, how will it not only benefit like you, but also how can it benefit your family? How will it benefit your relationships? How will it benefit your work? Right. And guaranteed, as we mentioned before, right, you being a happier, more energized person definitely affects your family and your family dynamics. And what is your inspiration, right? So, one of the inspirations I use is that I want to show my daughter, I want to be an example that I can be a fun mom, right? And I can have also this life beyond being a mother. Like, I want her to see that I have friends that I go out with without her, right? And that mom and dad have date nights because our relationship is important. And they get to stay at home and play with Dee Dee. And they love that, right? It's a win win. But doing this, actually writing these reasons down, helps your brain ditch that guilt. And it helps you make that switch between feeling like this is just something that I'll do when I have time into something that is really essential. So
Yeah.
that's really that first thing. And then the second piece of advice is just really being practical about getting it in your schedule. So, and this can sound so boring, right? You're like, oh my gosh, another thing I have to schedule. But we know that for most of us, if it's not in our schedule, if we don't plan it, it most likely doesn't happen. And even if you love being spontaneous, right, you need to at least allocate the time so that you can be spontaneous with that time. And for us mothers, right, that usually means securing childcare if your fun activity this week doesn't happen to be family oriented. But it's also aligning your schedules with maybe other women, other families, other busy people too. So the reality is, for this to happen, it has to be done in advance. So that's why I do weekly. I think about, okay, what am I doing this week? And maybe even if it's a group thing, what am I doing next week that I need to just reach out to a couple people and start planning? And that's how you make it happen. And I would encourage you to think about, where can you make this a routine? So where can you line up something that happens on a regular basis? Like, hey, mother-in-law, like, how would you feel about watching the kids every fourth Friday? So my husband and I can have a date night, right? Or, hey, neighbor girl who does babysitting, like, what do you think about coming over every X whatever so I can go to yoga? Or, hey, partner, husband, I'd like to go to yoga on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. for this next session. Would you be okay with that? So just trying to find places where you can just get things on the calendar and get a routine going. So at least you have allocated the time for that fun to happen. I feel like that is just so critical for us busy mothers.
For sure. And communication is a huge part of this. Fun happens more easily when you are working with other people to make it happen. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, if you're in the place where you're like, but I don't have help, right? My parents are far away or they're old and they can't really care for our kids. That doesn't mean you don't get to have fun. You can take turns with your husband having
Mhm.
fun, however that looks like. Maybe like, you know, you have A, B weeks. On A weeks, like I go have fun. On B weeks, you go have fun. You can take
Mhm.
turns. And this goes for the time that you connect with each other too. You don't have to leave the house to have fun with your partner. What you can do is you can have specific days where you hang out together. And on those days, the kids got to be upstairs by a certain time. And it's a whole family thing, right? It's okay, okay, this is time for mommy and daddy to hang out. So you guys can read until you fall asleep or play for a little bit. And then I'll come up and say goodnight. Like you can get so creative about doing this. And it's just a matter of not when can we do this? It's like, how can we do this?
How?
If you can put that question in your mind, you can get really resourceful because it's something that you really want to do rather than feeling like when
Mhm.
all the stars align, then I will do this. It's
Yes.
more of, okay, the stars will align when I do this because
Yes,
otherwise life
exactly.
at home is going to fall apart.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. We need to make it happen, right? And this is one of those things that we do have more control than we think we do,
Yes.
right? And I love your suggestion about still having fun at home. And one of the things that we've done as a family, we actually have family dance parties, right? So this is actually including my kids too. And we have a whole play set. Like we have songs that we just love. We put on the music videos and literally we are all dancing in the living room. And my husband just mentioned this today. He's like, we haven't had a family dance party in a while. And I'm like, you know what? We haven't, because it always puts everyone in such a better mood. And that stemmed really from me understanding even my own fun elements because I realized I love music. I actually
Mm-hmm.
love dancing. I'm terrible at it, right?
Doesn't
But
matter.
it's something I don't even care who's watching, right?
Yep.
Even at weddings, I'm just like, "Ah," it's so fun. And so that is very playful to me. And then something I can share with my kids, that's connection, right? And I put away my phone so that flow is not interrupted. And we literally just play dance videos for like half an hour. And it's fun. It's so fun.
I love that so much. We're the kind of family that like sings things that we speak. or we'll belt out songs that our kids love and know or whatever. But we also love board games too. So a couple nights a week, we strive to make sure that we can get the kids ready in order to have
Mhm,
that family time together where we play Uno or, some other card game that all ages can play because I've
mhm,
got kids ranging from 3.5 to like almost 14. And then just the other night on my date night with my husband, we were playing Super Mario Wonder on the Nintendo Switch.
mhm.
And that was like our time to connect without kids like interrupting our game time. And we can just like be a team and enjoy this new game together. So you can get super creative about this. It's just a matter of how willing are you to actually put in the energy and the
Mhm,
effort to figure it out. And it's not that hard once you start getting it going. It's just
mhm,
a matter of overcoming that hurdle of like, oh, well, I don't have time. I don't have energy, or
mhm.
I don't know how this is going to work. What if you just switch your mindset to be like, well, this is going to work. So if this is a priority for us to feel like we're connected as a family, we're connected as partners, and home life is filled with laughter and love and compassion and kindness, what needs to go? Because the other stuff doesn't necessarily need to be there, right? So, really challenging how you think life needs to be
Mhm,
and inviting the possibility of what it could be like in order to meet those priorities of the connected relationships. So,
mhm. Cool.
tell us more about how people can connect with you because I think everybody could use more fun in their life, which means that everybody can use a Tara in their life. So,
Yes, of course. That guide that I mentioned, you can find that on motherhoodbalanced.com. So that's my business name, and it's called The Joyful Balance, a guide for working moms to reclaim fun and time for themselves without the guilt. And you can find more about me there. I'm also on Instagram and I have a Facebook business page. So you can find me on all of those places, and I would love to connect.
amazing. And if someone's listening to this and they're like, I need to work with her, I want her support, I am feeling really burnt out being a working mom, and I want to feel like I am more mindful, I am having more fun, and I am myself again. How do people work
Mhm.
with you?
Yeah. So on that same website, motherhoodbalance.com, you can schedule a balance breakthrough call with me. And on that call, we really discuss what struggles you're going through at the moment and whether or not the work life success system that I have would be potentially a good fit and something that might help. It's really based on three main buckets of work to get you feeling fulfilled and balanced in all areas of your life. So we work on confidence, we work on priority setting. Along with that is boundary setting and saying no and all of that good time management stuff. And then really that last part is routines. How can we decrease that mental load? I know I still carry a huge mental load. It's getting better, but still an uneven mental load, right, with my partner. So, how can we engage our whole family in routines that really can assist with that and gives us more time in the end to spend on the things that are really important?
Amazing, amazing. Okay, before I let you go, I love to ask my guests a question so that the listeners can get to know you better as a person. Are you ready?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so you talked about dance parties. So, what is your favorite song to jam out to?
So, on the rotation is Happy by Bruno Mars.
Oh, so good.
Um, Justin Timberlake, I got that feeling
Oh, I
inside.
love
That
that
one, I don't know if I'm on.
movie.
There's that one. Um, my 5-year-old loves Taylor Swift, so Shake It Off is always in
Okay.
there. My husband picks something more like party rock anthem, which is still really fun. So, yeah, those would probably be on the most frequently played list right now.
I love it so much. Thank you so much for being here as a guest. I can't wait to hear what the listeners take away from this conversation. If you love this episode, please reach out and let us know what your favorite parts about this episode was. And go follow her on Instagram. Go check out that free guide that she has and More importantly, if you feel like she can help you, go book a consultation call with her to figure out how she can help you become who you want to be. Because you deserve to be that person. And we all need you to be that person. Your family, your friends, every person. Okay? Well, thanks again, Tara. I loved what you shared. And I will catch you all back here next week. Bye. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review. I would so appreciate that. And if you love what I share here, then you're going to love and want to join my free private Facebook community that's also called Marriage and Motherhood. I hope to see and connect with you in there. Otherwise, I'll catch you back here next week for the next episode. Bye!